And action.
Wow, that was a loud clap, honey. Welcome to an Intentional Marriage Podcast. We are your hosts, Kristen and Chad Cottingham. We are here to discuss all things marriage because we know great marriages don't just happen. You have to be intentional.
Speaking of being intentional, that's the name of our book, An Intentional Marriage. And we're going to be diving in, Kristen, to our 5th section of that book today on maintaining that commitment.
Yes, and we've talked and touched on our book all throughout these podcasts, and we will continue. It's funny that we're jumping in intentionally at the very end of the book. But today's topic is all about maintaining commitment, that vow till death do us part. So that's going to be a good conversation, isn't it?
And one thing I always think about marriage, and you think of those vows, marriage is such an adventure. It is an adventure, Kristen, and I know you like talking about this, what those ups and downs are. And
yes, I do like, there's a lot of different analogies or metaphors that describe marriage. Oh, it's a dance, it's a story, it's a, roller coaster up and down. But I do like just the picture of it being an adventurous journey. Because I think that just draws the picture in our minds of, adventure means, excitement, ups and downs, full of surprises, and not sure what's around the bend. Yes, challenges. And I think of hardships, that would be included, sure. I think also of the word journey, to me, makes me think of a long haul, a long distance, traveling together for the long haul, which is what we want. We want our marriage to last for the long haul, till death do us part. That's our goal.
Yeah, and that is our vow. And Kristen, I think if I just in a quick nutshell of our marriage of 33 years, wow, have we had adventures. And we kind of live by that mantra. It's always an adventure with the Cottinghams. I think, starting off getting pregnant in college and quick getting married. We had no money and jobs, to trying to raise 4 kids, to losing both of our fathers, to early deaths. We've both lost friends at young ages. Yeah. Our daughter had her hand amputated. We've had depression in our family, with you in particular. Yeah. Yes. And that's just among many of the other just marriage screw-ups and mess-ups we've had. Yes. It has been an adventure. And I remember one time, one guy was with us, a friend of ours from college. We met with him, and it was a crazy night. I'm not going to get in detail. And he kind of stops, and his comment was, "Is this how you always function?" And we're like, "But this is normal." And my daughter, Maddie, her eyes were open like, "This isn't normal."
My family's not normal.
No, but the thing we have, Kristen, is we have stayed together. We've said no matter what, the highs and lows, the roller coasters, we are not jumping off. And we'll get back to that. But I want to give an adventure story because I think this kind of have everything in it, and I want to take you. So it would have been 2016. So
8 years ago.
8 years ago already. Our son was in the Marines. He signed up. We were very surprised. We thought he might do Air Force or something like that, but he chose, I'm going to go and I'm going to be a Marine. And so he did, and that was out in California, then in San Diego. And so it was the end, and he was graduating from boot camp. 13 weeks of intense Marine Corps training. And so we were going to go out there, and not only were we going out to see him, but he had won Honor Man, which means he was voted the best of his squadron, platoon. I don't know the names of them all, but it was a huge honor, so we're excited. So your mom was going to go with us. My mom and her husband, Jay, were going to go with us. Alex, our son, was in college. He was going to fly up from Virginia and meet us. And so the whole family is going to go and enjoy this celebration and be together.
Well, and our 2 daughters.
Of course, our 2 daughters.
They went with us too.
So it was everybody, the whole family, including the in-laws. And that might have been our first mistake right there. So normally we travel, it's stressful anyway. If you've ever traveled with kids,
and let's tell them too that we're in Michigan. So we're from Michigan flying to California, San Diego. So this is a long journey.
Yes, and we've done a lot of adventures where I remember one year I was a teacher and I came home And it was 4 o'clock. I got home on a Friday and I said, let's go to Florida for spring break. And we just up and packed and left in an hour. So we just do random things. We take crazy adventures as a family. We could go on and on, you know.
This one was especially an adventure.
But this one, so we get there and we're there just a few hours and we're going to stay on the barracks. But before we get there, we're going to pick up our son who's flying in from Virginia. We're meeting him.
Yes.
And you know how if you ever go to airports, they don't like you parking there.
Yes.
They're always like, get going, keep
and
moving.
And mind you, we're all in this rental van.
Rental minivan.
So Maddie and I are in the way back, and then I think it was my mom and your mom in the middle, and then you and Jay up front.
No.
Because I remember being way in the back.
We're all in the back. You were up front with me.
Oh, well.
But anyway,
I'll let you tell the story.
I had done the circle like 3 times. And finally Alex gets there, and you run in to get him, and this cop, airport police, whatever security, he comes over to the van like for the 4th time after I've already circled and says, you gotta pull this thing out of here. And it wasn't one of my best moments. I said, hey, relax, Paul Blart. They're right there. They're walking out the door right now. And he looks at me, and then of course my mother-in-law, my mom started yelling, Chad, you got I said, shut up. Yeah, son, this is my trip. And this is my son. And they all got quiet. And so they came in. And Maddie's sitting there, and Carly, like, Dad just yelled at the cop and at Grandma and Nanny. Yeah. And you were like, what's going on?
I think I came in, because I went in the airport to get Alex, and we both came out, and we're like, oh my gosh, what's all this tension in the van right now? Like, what's happening? And then Maddie's like, Dad just called the airport security, Paul Blart. And I'm like, what? And he told Nanny and Grandma to shut up. And I'm like, what is happening? I'm gone for like 5 minutes.
Well,
and
we were on such a time crunch, and then we're racing to get to the thing to see our son. And as we're getting there, you see him practicing.
Oh, yes. And now, wait, mind you, we had not seen him for how many weeks? Or how many
3
months? Yeah, 3 months.
And not only see him, but you don't really communicate.
Right. It was like off the grid. And this was the first time I had been without communication for my son. You know, I was like super excited to see him.
And that was a challenge. So we get there and we kind of see his platoon. We knew what number it was, what color it was, all these distinctions. And Kristen sees his platoon. The car, now let me tell you, is still moving. I'm rolling. It hasn't stopped. The door opens. Kristen jumps out of the moving vehicle. I think her mom's like, Kristen! She goes running. Her hands are flying. Camera! She's screaming and she's literally knocking down ladies on the way, all the way to see him. And he can't even look. He's at attention. You ever see those British guards?
Oh, yeah.
You know, and they gotta stand there. Everybody's yelling. He can't move and he's carrying his flag. It's Camera! And she's knocking ladies over and screaming and yelling. So the two of us, and that's kind of a nutshell of how the trip started.
And how we operated for so long.
Yes, it was not healthy, not good. Some yelling, some craziness.
How did we get here, honey?
And I think that in the bottom line, we wanted to blame our parents for coming. Right. We said, we will never, ever, ever take our parents on a trip ever again. And so that was one thing, because it was like managing other kids in the back. It's like I had all full of kids.
But you know what? I don't even think we need to focus on that. We have enough of our own to focus on that in that trip. That was crazy.
And then these beds were uncomfortable. We slept in the barracks. I fell off. It was just, but Cameron did great. We were so proud.
Okay.
And that's all Facebook saw.
Yes.
So what an adventure.
That's funny.
I couldn't wait to get home.
Yes, that was quite the adventure.
The whole trip.
Full of ups and downs, full of challenges, full of emotions, full of... Oh, and don't forget that, remember, when it was time for the ceremony, and he was getting one of the highest honors.
Yeah, honor man.
You guys were somewhere... I had to save seats. Remember, I had to save seats in the bleachers, and I'm calling you, and you were somewhere... at some ceremony, I don't know. Anyway, I'm going off topic here, but that was just another piece to the puzzle where I was just like, we were losing our minds.
If it could go wrong, and it's so many times we acted inappropriate in our marriage, and these adventurous roller coaster twists, turns, challenges, we didn't always handle them well.
Well, and let's be honest, there are things in marriage, in a journey, on that trip even, that we could control and things we couldn't control. And I really feel like that's a way to look at this too, that there's certain things we can't control, the way other people act, and Paul Blart's, and
Jumping out of a movie.
I could control that. But there's one thing, and I think I'm going to segue this now. There's one thing that we can control when it comes to maintaining our commitment, and that is our mindset when it comes to marriage. I think that's a huge part to this commitment piece is we have to manage our mindset that, no matter what happens, no matter what's out of our control, we are staying together for better or worse.
Sickness in and out.
Till death do us part. And, before, I just want to throw out a quick disclaimer too, that even if this is your second marriage, third marriage, or whatever, there's no shame here. We are just exploring this topic and encouraging you, no matter where you are, if take this info or topic, and just move forward in the marriage that you're in. So, just a little side note.
It was so huge, Kristen. You talk about that mindset. It was the mindset of I'm committed no matter what, and that's really, really hard in today's disposable culture.
Yes,
because we live in a society and culture. If we don't like our job, we get a new job. If we don't, we need the newest phone. We need the biggest TV. The quarterback's not good. Put in a new quarterback for my favorite team. The coach isn't good at computers. Let's get a new coach. Everything is get something else that will be better. This one isn't working.
Right.
And I'm a big football fan. I'm a big NFL fan. And I don't tell people, but I really admire the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Oh.
And the reason is their ownership has had 3 coaches in the history of the franchise. They hire coaches and they stay forever. They're committed to them until that coach is going to retire 12, 15, 20 years later. And it's so rare and unique, and they're so good because year after year, because they have a consistent program coach, you know what to expect. And that's really the mindset. I think as our marriages could be more like the Pittsburgh Steelers and not like these other teams that every other year, like Jerry Jones on the Cowboys, he's firing and getting new coaches every year because they're not doing what he wants them to do. They're not.
Or it's not working out the way they want it to work out.
And not giving them time to let the process work.
Okay.
And so it's very interesting, and I just thought of that, and I just admire that.
I didn't know that about the Pittsburgh Steelers, honey. That's a new little fun fact to put in my reservoir. I don't know, of my wealth of knowledge that is lacking. No,
that's probably one thing I haven't shared. But I've just always admired that, and that's a mindset I've always had. I knew going in marriage, we grew up in faith, and we knew we had Christ at our center. And there was times, Kristen, the only thing holding us together was our faith.
Yes,
because we didn't like each other. We didn't act appropriate. We weren't the best husband and wife or parents, whatever that was. But we were committed to not letting go because we knew Christ had a hold of us and he had his arms wrapped around us. And that's all we had sometimes.
Yes, that is the absolute truth. We were committed because we knew it was, that God could get us through anything, really. And he has. Even a trip out to California.
Many other trips.
Yes. I was just going to say, too, you're right when it comes to a disposable culture. Our culture does not make it easy for us to stay married. It makes it very... it makes it normal to say, hey, I'm out of here. I feel like this message is very countercultural in today's day and age. And I feel like, too, why we are discussing this topic is because we do want to encourage others to stick with it, no matter the challenges, no matter the ups and downs. And it starts with the mindset.
It's that attitude that you have, that you bring. And Kristen, you're so right there because, honestly, we probably could have got divorced.
Yes.
Many times.
Yes. And murder, too.
And murder. Again, but our attitude of trying to be better and trying to say, I'm committed to this. Yes. Because always when there's an adventure and always when it's tough, and I think of climbing a mountain or a long trek in the woods for miles, and it's hard, it is so hard and so challenging, and you're so at each other. But at the end, when you get to the mountaintop, when you're overlooking the valley and you see the sunrise and you see it, it's like, we've made it.
It was worth it. Yes, the next little scenic overlook. And that's kind of, I feel like, yes, we do have these moments where we're like, oh my word, how did we get through that? Oh my word, we did get through it. And wow, look at where we are now.
Exactly. And I just want to encourage some of you out there that you may be in a struggle.
Yes.
You may be right now going, I can't do it. I can't stand him. I can't stand
Yes.
You don't know what he did. You don't know what my past, whatever that is. Just keep going.
Keep going, yes.
Because it is when you can look back and go, we've come this far. Look what we've learned.
Yes.
Look how better our marriage is because we had the challenges,
Right.
because we had the conflict, because we had the adventures. And we look back now and we laugh and we enjoy those adventures.
Yes.
But because neither one of us chose to run from the
Yes.
adventure.
Divorce was never an option.
No.
So I guess for this point, and
Yes.
in our book, we call this point adjusting your attitude, your mindset, have a committed mindset. But,
What else could they do, Kristen? So we're adjusting our attitude. We're saying we're not going to get
Yes.
divorced ever. But we go through challenges. What else could we do?
Well, we talk about another thing, another adjustment that we need to make is adjusting our allies. So adjusting our attitude to have this mindset, we're in it for the long haul. The second is adjust our allies because guess what? We are surrounded by people and some of those people are for us and some of us may not be for our marriage. And so it's really important to surround ourselves with like-minded people that are there to cheer for us and celebrate with us and
Mentor us, coach us.
Yes, and encourage us in our marriage journey because we do need support. We do need cheerleaders in our corner.
And I love that, having allies. And if you could look at someone that maybe is a next step ahead of you in the marriage journey and be able to share some of your struggles, what's going on, and have that friendship, you're going to find out you're not the only one. Oh, you went through it too. How did you get through it?
Right.
How did you do it? And it doesn't matter, again, whether it's a pre-internet generation or this new Generation Z.
Yes.
Marriage is marriage. Now, they each have their challenges, but when you start asking other people, how did you do it? What can I do to get better? That's where you have to change your allies to people that are marriage focused and
Yes.
marriage centered and know the importance of it. You have to be careful if you have friends that have been through divorces or are single and that's who you're hanging with and they're looking for new people or they're saying, hey, it's good. You have to be careful because those allies can pull you in a direction that, well, they're doing good. Maybe I should get divorced.
Yes.
Yeah, they're fine. Their kids are fine. There's so many challenges
Yes.
with that.
Well, and I think of, just from our own personal experience, people that we know that we've watched some marriages crumble right
Family,
before
friends,
us.
yeah.
Yes. And it's like, watching kind of a train wreck because you see it starting to happen. And it's like, no. And, I think of one who started just kind of, hanging out with some coworkers that were unhappy in their marriage. And it just started some chatter. And I think, just being very careful of who you're listening to and surrounding yourself with good marriages that, because your mind starts going like, oh, your husband does that? Well, mine does that too. Oh, my word. Oh, da-da-da-da. And it starts planting these seeds of negativity and that can just really turn into a toxic, heart environment and relational environment. But
And so it's a good one, Kristen, that you brought up because too often we can make fun of, rip, or criticize our spouse to someone.
Yes.
Sometimes to a family member, our parents, a close friend, and da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da.
yes,
And if we're not careful, all we're saying is negative about them.
right.
And there's so much positive.
Yeah.
I mean, there's 99% positive in things you do and I love. But if I focus on that one little thing that you do that bothers me over and over, all of a sudden my whole focus is on that one thing.
I only have one thing, honey?
Yeah.
Oh, good. No, didn't mean to make light. I just had to throw that in there. But you're right. Yes, when you surround yourself with negative people, you cannot have a positive life. That's just the truth. And so I think of that marriage friend in particular. She surrounded herself with some negative people that just kind of sucked her into their negativity, and their marriage crumbled. And I also think of couples that didn't have positive role models. So it might be a little bit more of a challenge to see what does a healthy marriage look like. And that's, I wanted to, throw that back to you when you said marriage mentors. Finding, seeking out, being intentional about looking for positive role models. And in fact, kudos to our listeners right now, because that's what they're doing by, through technology. There's so much good information out there and people to listen to and examples, and people like us who have negative examples to learn from.
But we have learned from them, but we can share what we've learned
Yes.
and how we do it different now.
Yes.
So if you're like, well, who could I? Maybe there's a couple at church or a couple that they appear to be doing well. Ask them out to dinner.
Yes.
Ask them over and
Yes.
grab a pizza and just talk, get to know them.
Yes.
And you realize that, you know what? They struggled like we are.
Yes.
And here's some things that they did. And you can learn from them if you're open to that.
Yes, it is being open. And I think, too, I like to encourage couples, it doesn't have to be some fancy, mentorship program.
No.
It's just sharing life together, sharing struggles, and finding somebody who's just a few laps ahead of you on the journey. Yeah. And we also, no matter where we are, we can help those behind us too. So there's always people to look to and help that are coming behind us. So,
yes. Kristen, you've covered the attitude, the mindset that divorce can't be an option. We need to adjust our allies to make sure they're marriage-focused people and know the importance of it. And then what's the last one?
Adjust our allowances and
I get a bigger allowance?
No, we have to make allowances for one another's faults. We kind of hinted to this verse in a previous podcast because it continues, and forgive the one who offends you. So this has to do with the topic we talked about a few weeks ago, forgiving our spouse, because if we don't use the tool of forgiveness in marriage, our marriage it's going to have a hard time going the distance, because we're going to build up this resentment along the way. Right. And that's, we don't want to, and I should have said this early on too, we don't want our marriage just to last for the sake of staying together. No. But that is the goal. But we also want to create an enjoyable marriage. We want to enjoy the ride. We want a mutually satisfying marriage that's going to go the distance. Right. And so if we're just like, we talked about holding on to the negativity or holding on to the resentment and not using that tool of forgiveness, that's going to make the ride so much less enjoyable and not satisfying. So I know one thing phrase that we talk about, pass over instead of point out.
Especially for the little things.
And that's what I'm talking about.
Which are preferences. I don't like how you leave this here, or how you park in the garage at night.
Yes. You don't like how I leave opened cans of things in the fridge, or little things. And those are just little preferences. Little things. Yes, that it's really, in the grand scheme of life, it's no big deal.
I have to make allowances, or try to make allowances, for her fault of keeping that in there that way. So I pass over and I don't say anything.
Right.
I just take it out, pour it in the sink, and throw it in the trash. And then I don't have to say anything. I don't want to confront. I don't want to create an issue. I don't want to have a fight.
Because if we did focus on every little thing,
we'd be fighting all day.
We'd be fighting all day, because we're two different people with two different approaches to life and two different perspectives, two different mindsets in how we see and view the world. And so there's a lot of reason for some clashing, conflict, and negative focus. So we've said this phrase in our marriage, like if I've pointed out something or said something, you'll be like, are you pointing out, or are you going to pass over? And I've said it too. And so it's kind of become a little catchphrase for us to realize, you know what, you're right. I just need to let this go. This is not a big deal.
Yeah. And what's really nice, the more years of marriage, it becomes easier to do. And your mindsets, your allowances, you really do go from 2 to 1. You start thinking more alike. You start liking the same things. One thing we don't like, we've been invited on vacations with other people all the time. We just don't like vacationing with other groups. We like adventures our way, which is usually kind of crazy and wild. And so we've done it.
We're not much into structure, are we?
And so, but we've kind of come to some of these things together, and we've learned. But I think early in marriage, oh, we'll vacation with you. Oh, sure, we'll camp with you. And then we're like, what the heck did we do that for?
That's not the case with everybody.
No.
Others do like to surround themselves with other
positive. But I'm just saying us, that how we've
Yes.
learned to let go of a lot. We've allowed for certain faults, but over
Yes.
time, those faults we've blended them. We've come more together. That's what I was trying to get. I probably got off track a little bit.
Okay, I was a little confused, but that's okay.
My fault.
Oh, goodness, no. So, yeah, I just think when it comes to maintaining commitment, there is some work that we can do and to be proactive
Yes.
rather than reactive, to prepare, rather than repair later down the road. And I think it is. I think we touched on three significant things, and that's having our mindset that, you know what, we're in it to win it for the long haul. We're going to, get rid of the D word out of our vocabulary. We're never going to throw that in fights. That was one of our non-negotiables. We're going to surround ourselves with healthy, like-minded people that are going to support and cheer for our marriage. And we're also going to choose to let things go. We're going to choose to forgive. We're going to make allowances for just the faults. Let go of the little things, major on the majors, minor on the minors.
And the last thing, and I'm going to throw out there, Kristen, it's the mindset going, I'm going to do anything to make this work. Whether that's we're going to read a marriage book together, maybe our book. We're going to listen to a podcast. We're going to go to a marriage class. So when you say in the prepare.
And proactive,
we want to be proactive in doing all these things so we don't go to a crisis mode where now we're seeking some deep counseling because there's hurt or trauma, whatever, because it does happen. So we're trying to do things, and we want you to do things in your marriage where you're proactive enough. You're constantly working on your marriage. You're being intentional.
Oh, I was waiting for you to throw that out.
Because great
marriages don't just happen. You have to be intentional.
We can't stress it enough. So no matter where you're at in your marriage,
Yes.
where you're at today, don't give up.
Yes.
Don't die. You've got this. Keep plugging along one day at a time. Do the things you need to do. We've talked about it. Keep listening. There's so many other resources out there, some wonderful things. You can check out our website or just go all over. There's just great people out there trying to build and pour into marriages.
Yes.
We're just lucky we get to be one of those.
Yeah, so, hey, thanks you guys for listening. This was kind of a fun all-over conversation, maybe like all of our conversations, but, we just want to encourage you to keep going. If we can do it, you can do it. We are here cheering for you, and you got this. So, thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening. So, like, share, subscribe, share, whatever you want to do.
2 thumbs up.
2 thumbs up. Bye-bye.